the cliche, obviously, is that women are more emotional, that there's this thing called female intuition. And if you talk to scientists, they all say that that's not true at all. That this gross generalization we make about men are more rational, more deliberate, women are more emotional, you don't see that at all. In fact, the few studies have actually found differences between men and women. For instance, on stuff like making investment decisions, have found that women act more rationally than men do. When you look at households and making investment decisions, the big problem, the reason men are so irrational is that they're too overconfident. They think they know what Cisco stock is going to do, or what GM is going to do, but they don't really have any idea. So men can actually behave more rational. So that's the first, I think, big lesson, is that this big cliche we've had for a long time, that women are more intuitive and emotional, just isn't true. And I think one of the explanations for that cliche, that myth, I think comes from the fact that for so long we have this idealization of rationality, and talking about women being more emotional was a way of saying, that's why you shouldn't be a CEO, that's why you're not ready to be president, or be in a leadership position, you're just too emotional, you're not rational enough. So I think that old cliche clearly isn't true. That said, I think there are some interesting distinctions you can pull out from some experiments. So one of my favorites comes from the work of a guy named Colin Campbell at Caltech, and he plays a trust game in a brain scan, and the trust game is very simple. You give person A $10, and person A can choose to share that money with person B. If they give person B all $10, then that money is tripled. So now person B has $30, which they can then share with person A. And then they can repeat the process, the money's tripled again. And so in order to really do well in this game, you have to trust each other. But sometimes, because you never know when the game's going to end, you can say, oh, I'm just going to keep all this money, I'm going to walk away with $100, you keep the earnings. So some people can violate the trust. So to make a long story short, what happens when you play this game of men and women is that men make a decision of what to do, whether or not to trust someone else with their money. And they make a decision, it takes about 3 seconds of cognition, and then once they make a decision, they stop thinking about it. They go back to daydreaming about Sports Center and the Phillies and whatever else they're thinking about. Women, on the other hand, make a decision of whether or not to trust someone else, and they keep on thinking about that for the next 30 seconds. You can watch them think about that in the brain scan. The same brain areas that light up before they make a decision keep on lighting up for 30 seconds after. And I asked him, Mr. Campbell, how do you explain this interesting difference between men and women? And he described to me, his normal routine with his wife, where they go to a dinner party, and they come back from the dinner party, and he's ready to watch television, or fall asleep, or drink a beer, or whatever his afternoon routine is. And his wife wants to talk about the dinner party. She's someone to say, well, did I talk too much? Why was she so surly? Why didn't she say that to me? When you think about the food, on and on. And what Cameron argues that women are simply more interested in thinking about social interactions. Men make a decision that whether to trust someone, and then decision's done, we've moved on. Whereas women keep on wanting to ponder it, wanting to really mine it for more information, more knowledge, more wisdom. And that slight preference, that social preference for being more interested in social interaction seems to be a real gender difference. But I bring that up as an example because it's still obviously gross generalization. Some women probably want to watch Sports Center more than I do when they get home after dinner party. But it's those kind of differences, these slight differences, these very specific contextual differences that seem to be the gender differences scientists are finding now. It's not like big differences like women are emotional, men are rational.